Once upon a time, in a kingdom where dreams sparkled like stars in the night sky, there lived a girl whose kindness could light up the darkest room. Do you want to hear her story? A story full of magic, friendship, and a little glass slipper? Then snuggle up, close your eyes if you'd like, and let's begin. There was once a girl named Cinderella. She lived in a big, beautiful house. But even though the house was large, her heart sometimes felt small and lonely. Her father had married again, and Cinderella now lived with her stepmother and two stepsisters. The stepmother wore fancy dresses and spoke in a sharp voice. The stepsisters liked to laugh at silly things and tell Cinderella what to do. Every day, Cinderella had chores, and more chores. She swept the floors. She scrubbed the pots. She carried buckets of water until her arms grew tired. But Cinderella never complained. She hummed gentle songs as she worked. She talked kindly to the little birds who fluttered by the window. She smiled at the mice who scurried across the floor. Though she wore old clothes and her hands were dusty, her heart shone brighter than any jewel. And deep inside, Cinderella carried a dream of joy, a dream of kindness, a dream of something magical waiting for her just around the corner. One sunny morning, the whole town buzzed with excitement. Bells rang in the square. Trumpets played a cheerful tune. A royal messenger rode through the streets. His voice boomed. His Majesty the King invites all the young ladies of the kingdom to a grand ball at the palace. The prince himself will choose a dance partner. Oh, how the stepsisters squealed. They clapped their hands, twirled in circles, and began chattering about what dresses they would wear. Cinderella's heart skipped. A ball, a palace, music and laughter. She whispered, "Oh, how I would love to go." But her stepmother narrowed her eyes. "You? Go to the ball? Nonsense!" she snapped. "You have no gown, no jewels, no shoes. Stay home and finish your chores." Cinderella tried to be brave, but a tear slid down her cheek. The night of the ball arrived. The stepsisters put on ribbons and feathers. They argued about which shoes sparkled more. The stepmother fussed with their hair until it stood tall like towers. Then, slam! The carriage doors closed. The wheels rumbled away, and Cinderella was left alone in the quiet house. She walked to the garden, her heart heavy. She sat by a pumpkin patch, her face in her hands. "Oh, how I wish I could go just once to the ball." Suddenly, the air shimmered, the leaves rustled with magic, and poof! A gentlewoman appeared, dressed in a gown that shimmered like starlight. She held a golden wand that glowed softly in the night. "My dear," said the woman with a warm smile. "Why are you crying?" Cinderella gasped. "Who are you?" "I am your fairy godmother," the woman said kindly, "and tonight you shall go to the ball." The fairy godmother tapped her wand. Bibbidi-bobbidi-boo. The big orange pumpkin in the garden grew, stretched, and, pop, turned into a golden carriage. 6 little mice stood on their back legs. Their whiskers twitched. With another flick, zap, they became proud horses with shiny coats. The old gray dog wagged his tail and, poof, he became the coachman. Cinderella's eyes grew wide with wonder. "But what about my dress?" she asked softly. The fairy godmother smiled and swirled her wand. Cinderella's old clothes melted away and transformed into the most beautiful gown she had ever seen. It shimmered like moonlight. On her feet appeared delicate glass slippers that sparkled brighter than diamonds. Cinderella twirled in delight. "Oh, thank you so much." The fairy godmother nodded gently. "Go, my dear. But remember, this magic will only last until midnight. When the clock strikes 12, everything will return to the way it was." Cinderella promised to be careful. She climbed into the golden carriage. The horses whinnied. The coachman tipped his hat, and off they went. Clip-clop, clip-clop, toward the shining palace. The palace sparkled with golden lights. Music filled the air. Ladies in colorful gowns spun across the floor. Gentlemen bowed politely. Laughter echoed through the great hall. And then Cinderella entered. The room grew quiet. Every eye turned to her. She glided forward, graceful as a star. The prince himself stepped toward her. His eyes lit up with joy. "May I have this dance?" he asked. Cinderella blushed and placed her hand in his. Together they danced, round and round across the shining floor. The prince laughed. Cinderella smiled. The world seemed to disappear. They talked and danced, danced and talked until dong! The clock began to chime. "Oh no!" Cinderella gasped. "It's midnight!" She pulled away. She ran down the steps of the palace. Her glass slippers clicked on the stairs. "Wait!" called the prince. But Cinderella was already gone, rushing into the night. She jumped into the carriage, and it raced away. But as the clock struck 12, dong! The golden carriage turned back into a pumpkin. The horses became mice. The coachman became the old gray dog. And Cinderella stood in her torn old dress, panting under the moonlight. She touched her feet. One glass slipper was gone, but the other remained, glowing softly in the grass. The next day, the kingdom buzzed again. The prince held the lost glass slipper in his hand. "I will marry the one whose foot fits this shoe," he declared. The royal guards carried the slipper from house to house. They tried it on every young lady in the land, but it fit no one. Finally, they arrived at Cinderella's house. The stepsisters pushed forward. They squeezed their toes. They tugged and pulled, but the slipper would not fit. The prince turned to leave. But then, Cinderella stepped forward. Her eyes were gentle, her smile kind. "May I try?" she asked softly. The stepsisters laughed. The stepmother frowned, but the prince nodded. Cinderella slipped her foot into the glass slipper. It fit perfectly. Magical chime sound. The prince's face lit up with joy. "It's you," he said happily. And so Cinderella's life changed. She and the prince were married in a grand celebration. The kingdom cheered. The birds sang. The bells rang. But even with her new life, Cinderella never forgot what mattered most. She showed kindness to everyone, even her stepsisters. She shared her joy, her smile, her gentle heart. Because true magic is not just in glass slippers or golden carriages. True magic is in kindness, in hope, and in never giving up on your dreams. And from that day on, Cinderella's story was told again and again, bringing hope to every heart that listened. And that, my dear friends, is the tale of Cinderella, a story that reminds us, be kind, even when it's hard. Keep dreaming, even when it feels far away. And remember, magic is all around us when we believe. If you liked this story, don't forget to join us again for more magical tales every week. Until then, sweet dreams and good night.